Thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Yeah, a lot of talk recently in social media about these strange looking clouds that were viewed across parts of Scotland over, particularly yesterday, but I don't know if anybody's seen them through the course of today or not. But nonetheless, a very interesting spectacle, that's for sure. A relatively rare occurrence and produced some really eye catching views from the ground. What is Nacreous clouds or polar stratospheric clouds? According to the Met Office, anyway, they form a way up, with 68,500 to 100,000 feet above the ground. So they are among the highest clouds that form, and you need a temperature down to minus 78 or colder in order for these things to be produced. So what are nacreous clouds? Nacreous clouds are rare and very high clouds, known mainly for the coloured light they reflect after sunset and before sunrise. So it's actually once the sun has either set or it's about to rise that you tend to find these clouds visible from the ground. And the reason why they're relatively rare, not rare completely, but relatively so, is because you need to have the polar vortex, in other words, actually bang slap overhead for these things to be viewed. And that's why it only happens once every few years when the vortex becomes positioned over the British Isles. And that is the case at the moment. But like I say, you need to have temperatures lower than minus 78 for these things to form. And it is formed by ice crystals, and it's actually the sun's the beam of the sun reflecting off these ice particles that create the different clouds, and quite an interesting occurrence, that's for sure. So, of course, if you look at the 10 millibar level, the core of the polar vortex is essentially just to the west of the UK and Ireland, as you can see here. Temperatures measured by the GFS model anyway at minus 84 Celsius, and it actually is supposed to strengthen slightly within the 24-hour period, just ever so slightly. But very quickly, we'll have a quick look at the latest run of the GFS with regards to the stratosphere, and it looks as if certainly the later runs have been showing this vortex becoming a little bit more robust, a little bit stronger, and less penetrative of this warmth that we're seeing trying to come off Asia towards the pole. It looks as if, in other words, that the polar vortex is holding its ground a little bit more than initially thought, and therefore it weakens less at the 10 millibar level. But of course, all the eyes are on the tropospheric polar vortex and what this response may have on the lower tropospheric polar vortex here. So of course they're two separate entities when they're not coupled. When they are coupled, and especially when you've got a strong vortex overhead, when they're coupled between troposphere and stratosphere, you get a very strong westerly jet stream, and that is what drove last February's very stormy conditions. Remember, we had several storms, even within a 10-day period, batter the UK. That was because we had a very strong polar vortex overhead coupled with the troposphere, and that drove a very, very powerful west to east jet stream. A little bit different at the moment, because we do have this displacement, this slightly weakened version, but it definitely holds its ground, as you can see here. But notice towards the end of this loop here, of course, everything is getting pushed back further and further in terms of any kind of response, any kind of stratospheric warming situation. The models are definitely now backing away from that idea. But notice here that there is another pulse of warming that takes place towards the middle portion of the month. So any response would now be pushed into the month of March as opposed to February. So that's quite interesting, of course. Let's have a look at the situation over Europe here at the moment. So we've got a situation where we've got high pressure centered to the northwest of the British Isles here. If I can try and get the right view, sorry about this. Let's have a look. Let's see. Let's get back to the overview chart. So here we go. So we've got a pretty deep area of low pressure, as you can see near Iceland. We've got the strong area of high pressure over the Azores. But what happens is we need to keep an eye on this feature. Now, there is a Met Office yellow warning in place for the north of Scotland for strong to severe gale force winds, particularly so tomorrow night and into Wednesday morning. That area of low pressure actually takes a little bit of a drop south. We've got this area of high pressure. It kind of rides the northwest flank and northeast flank of that low or that area of high pressure, should I say, sorry. It does drop close to the Northern Isles, and it's up across Orkney and Shetland that we expect to see 70 to 80, possibly 90 mile per hour winds. Even in exposure of the mainland, we could see 70 to 80 mile an hour winds across the north coast here, for example. So the area of low pressure makes its closest approach around about, between midnight and 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Cold air, a little bit cold air associated with that may produce snow, especially over high ground, but I don't think it's going to come down to low levels. If we look at the snow prospects of the GFS, you see that it picks up snow over the mountains, not really anything to low levels, I don't think, anyway. And then really, this is not a good sign. If we play right the way through this loop, you notice how there is literally no snow forecast by the GFS all the way through to the middle portion of the month. Very, very little in the way of snow expected here. So, of course, that is not great for cold weather lovers, I'm afraid, here. Here is the peak wind gust expected by the GFS model. You can see, of course, the strong winds really kick in during the course of tomorrow. The isobars start to squeeze as that area of low pressure nears the north coast during the course of tomorrow afternoon and evening. Winds will continue to pick up through the course of the day. And then it's really once we get to the overnight period tomorrow night and into Wednesday morning, we could see some damaging wind gusts in exposed areas of Lewis, Harris, North Mainland, Orkney and Shetland, definitely going to bear the brunt of these strong winds. And you even notice here that we've got some strong winds to the south of Uist here. We've also got a very strong gusts expected off the east coast of Fife, for example, in Tayside. Through Orkney, we've got some of those purples representing wind gusts in excess of 110 kilometers per hour, 80 miles per hour roughly. So a very, very windy day, and over the next 48 hours it's going to be pretty windy actually across the board, especially across northern areas of the British Isles, but not exclusively. It's going to be quite windy, I think, most places during the course of tomorrow and through Wednesday also, as we've got this set up in place here. Also, we've had quite a lot of snow across parts of Turkey. We've got an area of low pressure over the eastern Mediterranean basin. Even high parts of Cyprus, for example, may pick up on snowy conditions as the colder air digs into eastern portions of Europe here. But you notice here the situation that we've got. Area of high pressure quite strong just in the south of the UK, keeping most of England, Wales and Ireland largely dry over the next wee while or so. These systems are going to run around the top of that high, glancing blows across the north. But notice this situation that we've got here towards February 3rd or Friday this upcoming week. And you've got this area of low pressure getting pushed all the way up towards Greenland. Area of high pressure starts to build in over the British Isles here. So we're going to start to see that high kind of build overhead across the UK. And we may get frost and fog conditions underneath that area of high pressure. I don't think it's going to be an overly warm situation, but nonetheless, there is not a great deal to write home about with regards to any kind of major cold weather. But of course, we do continue to need to watch that area up towards Scandinavia. Models are still trying to sniff out some sort of a Scandinavian block developing, especially I think mid to late month. And of course, we will wait and see what happens with regards to that kind of outcome. So short and sweet video today, well, relatively so. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Please like, please share, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. See you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.